Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive podcast. If you're at the $5 tier on Patreon, you unlock this podcast, the bonus podcast each and every week. Not just me, we have other cohorts jumping in, but the star of the show, the real deal, the reason you're here is if you're at the MinnMax Council tier, the $20 tier on Patreon. Even if you just try that for 1 month, you can jump in and ask us any question under the sun. You can literally podcast with us directly. Or if you're like, it's a weird time, I don't want to jump on Discord, that's fine. You can also submit a question over on Patreon and we are guaranteed to answer it. But thank you all for being here. Fun stuff. Raise your hand in the crowd if you also want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth here. Throw your hand in the air. Okay, B Wood. Okay, Nico. Okay, this is fantastic.
The podcast, the last episode, you had mentioned that you were going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yes.
And I just felt really compelled to jump on. I've been meaning to actually jump on for a long time, and I just kept on procrastinating.
Hey.
And so when you said that, I was like, oh, no, I'm absolutely cool.
I love it. You're exactly who I was hoping to net in that call on the podcast. But we're also joined by Nick S. Hello, Nick S.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello, welcome. You also want to talk about Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
Awesome, great. We got a good crew. We can really dive into the weeds on this. And everybody, feel free to jump in, volley any questions, any topics, any concerns, all that fun stuff. So we talked about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the podcast last week. I felt like I was, it was tough in that crowd. Like, God, there's so many details to get into from the demo that I had that I didn't really feel a good opening. It's like on the broad podcast, how specific can you get? Like, you're going to bore everybody at a certain point, even people being friendly and nice. And so this is a nice opportunity to be able to dive in the weeds a little bit more on the demos that I received. But then also, they blew my mind by releasing that TGS whole panel, like that whole other video showing so much more gameplay in the open region of the game. I thought it was mind-boggling, Hammer.
I didn't watch it.
Oh, okay. Do you care if we go through details of it? Because there's a lot of really interesting stuff there.
I do. What do you call it? I don't mind because of I don't mind about the spoilers because I didn't want to just spoil it for myself if I watch it. But sure. I don't care if you talk about it.
Okay, great. Let's run through the details of that panel first, and then we can get into specific questions and more lore stuff and all that good juicy stuff. It was Katase, it was the director, and then it was Nomura, like coming in basically over Skype during that TGS panel. And so Nomura at some point talking about the story, let's see, he had a couple interesting ways to phrase it where he's saying like, if you're really interested in what's happening with Zach and all that stuff, like by the end of Rebirth, you will fully understand it, is how he phrased it, which is nice that they're not dragging things out too far, that we'll have a good sense of what's going on, at least with Zach timeline stuff before we're going into the third entry for the grand finale of all this stuff. And he also phrased it in an interesting way where he said that, Rebirth for this section of the game, it is the original Final Fantasy VII plus the new stuff, is how he put it. And so that makes me think like, okay, how separate is kind of the new chunk going to be? Because he also was talking about Zach stuff, and they said, this was in an IGN interview, I believe, where he said, as for Rebirth, there will be a new episode with Zach that will contain even more of him than the remake. And I'm not expecting it to be like Yuffie's DLC, like a separate episode, but it's interesting that he uses, through the translator, right, that it's phrased as a new episode with Zach. So it's probably going to be just like a standalone little chunk of him kind of going on his journey through Midgar. But it'd be weird to put all those Midgar assets on the disc again. So I'm really curious what he means by that.
I'm sorry, Ben.
Yeah.
A couple of questions.
Please.
Because I never played the original.
Oh, interesting. Sure.
First of all, do I need to play Reunion to know what's going on?
To play, Crisis Core?
Yes.
No. I think you'll be set. The Crisis Core...
Because I still don't know who Zach is.
Right.
I've seen him.
I think if you're playing remake, I don't think they really want you to have a great sense of who Zach is. Like, he definitely has been talked about, and like the pieces are all there from remake, more than I thought for how heavy-handed they were for hinting at a lot of that stuff. But they want you to be a little bit confused. Even I think if you went through Crisis Core, I don't think you have all the answers based on the original Final Fantasy VII. So I think you'll be okay going in a little mysterious about who is this Zach fella and his journey through the world. How does that correlate? I think you'll be just fine that way.
Also, this is funny. My first what do you call it, interaction with Final Fantasy VII was just watching Advent Children way before all of this stuff came out. So I watched that extremely confused throughout that whole animation. Is that canon? What is that?
Oh, it is beyond canon.
After the game?
It is after the game, yeah, but it's more relevant than you could possibly imagine. It seems like where they're going with the story is it's very reliant on Advent Children. So, well, not very, but it's going to be tying into that. So you're set. If you know Advent Children more than you know Crisis Core, I'd imagine by the end of the third part you'll be all set.
But they don't really explain anything in that. So like Vincent is in it. He just shows up and goes away.
Right.
He shoots. He does some shooting. I'm still confused about it. Other than like playing the stuff that was very deliberate in the remake.
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
Well, are you enjoying your experience so far with just remake then?
I love it because you got me into it.
Oh, wow.
Because of the Deepest Dive, I started playing and just listened to that 16 hours talking that you guys did on the Deepest Dive.
Yeah.
And I still don't know who that cat is.
Yep. Well, that's fair. You know what? We're still confused about who the cat is, even if we grew up with the frickin' cat.
And why is he Irish?
Scottish. It's confusing. I don't really understand it. Let's see. Did you watch the TGS whole stage show and that gameplay demo? Did everybody watch that?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Who was that? Nico or Bob? Or sorry, B Wood that said they watched it.
I said it, B Wood.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, B Wood. What stood out to you the most about that demo for the new gameplay there?
I think just how much they just showed. Was that I think that's what really just blew me off my feet while watching it. And then I think one thing that stood out for me, being a Horizon fan, but more for Horizon Forbidden West, is that you can kind of see when it comes to the chocobo hunting, like, oh, okay, I think you probably got some of that from, and not to say that other games don't do that, but here you are the protagonist with the same color hair as the floral that you're hiding in, and you're going to take a stone and throw it to try to distract the person you're trying to get to. That just felt very Horizon.
That's funny. Yeah, and I know that the director of the game did say that they were a fan of Horizon as well. And so I didn't even think about the same color hair as the grass, but yeah, absolutely. So you're collecting chocobos in this world and bringing them back to the chocobo farm by crouching around, stealthing through grass, throwing a rock, and then jumping on their back, and then they're good to go. And then you can customize them and stuff later on in different chocobo barns that are scattered around the world. That seemed like a cool detail. I love that they kept technically like the chocobo footprints from the original game that's still in there, except now you're actually just tracking them in that way. That seems like a really smart angle. And like getting on a chocobo, I was delighted that it's faster than it is in 16. Because like in 16, you would call the chocobo, then you had to press a button to get on separately. And this way, it's like, okay, you call the chocobo, you're good to go. It's jumping on automatically, and you're off to the races, which is nice, including literal races.
So I was watching someone else watch it, and they were kind of wishing that there was more bucking by the chocobo.
Right.
And I was wondering if you thought that was something they probably should have.
I was bracing for that. Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of kind of a Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style thing. But no, it's kind of nice, I guess, just to make it a little more streamlined. Like, oh, the chocobo soothes when you get on its back. You're good to go. They did mention in an IGN interview that there's no chocobo breeding in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which, I guess that's fine. We're going to get so many different types of chocobos for, flying or walking up walls and stuff like that. The mountain chocobo, all that stuff. So there'll still be the variety there, even if it's not kind of an elaborate process of breeding.
Do you think they're going to do the leveling for the chocobos through the races that it looks like they added to all the regions now instead of just at the gold saucer?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you want?
Give me as many games as they want.
Yeah,
that's the thing I saw from the TGS trailer the most was here's all the mini games, enjoy.
Yeah. Also, I mean, in that gameplay, they showed off that there's going to be a card game now they're introducing that's called Queen's Blood. Not Queen's Gambit, completely different. This is Queen's Blood, and it's going to have like a story from the beginning of the game to the end that's going to be going through. They also showed you can fully play the piano in Nibelheim. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce the name of this game. I know I should, or name of the town. But and it's like a fully working piano, just like the guitar was in Last of Us Part 2. Except also now there's like a rhythm game, so you can play like Aerith's theme on the piano and stuff, which just seems absurd. And then the part that blew my mind that they're just showing this, because this is big stuff for dorks like us. But when they showed Mog House, which is that weird frickin' minigame in the Gold Saucer, which originally, I visited Square back in 2016, and I talked to Tokata, who worked on Final Fantasy VII for just a little bit, but he also goes back. I mean, he worked on Final Fantasy I. He was the co-director of Chrono Trigger. And he told the origin story of Mog House and how it was just an artist made that background that looks so pretty. And they said, well, we got to do something with this. I don't know, let's make like a Tamagotchi style thing. And then that's what led to Mog House existing. So it's always been this weird little mini game in Gold Saucer, but now I'm sure it'll be in the Gold Saucer still, but now Mog House is also just around the world map. And it just looked like an elaborate mini game where you're like dodging a bunch of Moogles. Did you understand what was happening there, Nico, in that footage?
I did not, honestly. It just didn't get enough time for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm equating Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to Yakuza Like a Dragon that came out a couple of years ago with the amount of just content that they're shoving into this.
Yeah, it certainly seems like a ton. I mean, there's also in that footage just awesome teases of, they show one shot where it shows like airships flying over the world. It's like, oh my God. And something that was cool in the demo that we saw as you're making your way up to Junin, I guess it's pronounced. I always called it Junon, or Junin, but it's not. It's Junin. You can see the high wind on the landing strip up there, which is super cool. But they also confirmed then that Vincent is not playable. He'll be in your party for a bit in this game, but he's not going to be fully playable, kind of like Yuffie was, or sorry, like Red 13 was.
Red 13.
Yes, thank you, Bob. But then also, it seems like people are saying they said the same thing about Sid, but I couldn't find any confirmation of that. I didn't see that interview, at least, that Sid's also going to be in your party, but then not controllable until the third part, which would make sense if that's going to be the big high wind chapter of the game,
I'm excited to see, hopefully, Vincent's limit breaks. I remember him having just some of the oddest old school Hollywood monster magic.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that. That's going to be great. And I know nothing, but I would put money on the DLC for this game focusing on Vincent. And that's the first time you get to control him, and him turning into a bunch of different beasts again. I could totally see it happening.
Did they talk about DLCs or anything like that?
No, not with us, or not that I saw from TGS stuff. Just a couple teases of, it's interesting they are talking as much as they are about what's going to be in the third game, where they said that Wu Tai isn't going to be in this game, it's going to be in the third game. But then they said, they were showing a bunch of teases of like, look at all this other stuff that's in Rebirth. And they showed a shot of Wu Tai in that. So I don't know if that just means it's a cutscene or what's going on with that. Oh,
also, you played it, Hanson.
I did,
So how big of a jump in terms of graphic and other like technicality it is in terms of the first one?
It's a good question. I mean, if you played the PS5 version of Remake, I don't think you're going to crap your pants when you see this game. Like, it looks good. It looks better. But
it was already amazing.
For sure. I mean, I kind of think 16 looks better at this point, but this game is just so much more ambitious in terms of the size of the world. But it plays great, feels great, super happy with the synergies. I think it's a really smart idea, because definitely, problems with the combat in Remake, which is a system that I loved, is that idea of like, there were those periods where you're just kind of sitting around waiting for like, okay, I need the ATB gauge to get up so I can do something cool or interesting. And so having this just be an option every time you guard, you can then whip out a certain type of synergy, and then you can also build up abilities to do larger synergy attacks. Like, that seems like a really smart system. And the other problem with the Remake combat was enemies that are flying. It's like, well, okay, we have Aerith and Barrett. Other than that, it's kind of a pain in the ass to get these guys sometimes. So more synergy attacks involving launching you into the air, stuff like that, is a nice way to kind of kill two birds, two chocobos with one stone there. The biggest thing that they're really pushing for our demo and everywhere else is like, they're not using the words open world, but they're like, this open area, there's so much to do and so much to explore. And I was honestly skeptical about that. Like, this is by far my most anticipated game, but even playing the section I did, it wasn't too big of an area, just running from the Mithril Mines over to Junin. Junon, sorry. And so it wasn't that big of an area. You could just kind of get across it pretty quickly. And then if you wanted to explore, it's like, okay, there were the chocobo farms. You could find the little chocobo chicks. And if you followed them, then you'd basically unlock a fast travel point, which is handy, sure. But you're collecting resources. I saw that, but that's just kind of, from what I understand, it's like that's just for crafting. Where it's like, hey, you can craft a high potion if you collect enough of these, which wasn't exactly blowing my mind. Oh, go ahead.
I thought the TGS trailer map that they showed during the preview was pretty decently big.
Yep, it totally was. And so that's what I'm saying, is I was skeptical about everybody coming out of the preview that I play, and they're like, this open world is amazing. There's so much to do. I'm like, look, I can't wait for this game, but that didn't really blow me away. Just being able to run around and collect crafting materials. But it just depends on what you can find in that open world. And I think this TGS demo did a much better job of, just simple stuff like, hey, here, the Mog house is just out here over by the Chocobo farm. You can find that. And so if there are more of those side quests you can find in the open world, interesting things, because the main thing that I encountered was they wanted you to do these hunts going after fiends, as they call them. And so there's kind of special hunts where you get a bonus if you complete the challenges of like, okay, you have to stagger this fiend or fulfill this requirement as you're hunting down this fiend, and then you'll get a bonus. Where it's like, I'm not big into the hunts in Final Fantasy games, so that wasn't really blowing me away. There was a weird detail where there's a character called Mai, M-A-I, and I think AI is very crucial there, where she sounds a little robotic, but she's the one that's having you track the fiends, like the different monsters, and kind of giving the monster backstory as you're going on these hunts in the open world. So that's one of the activities, but other activities are a big question mark for what's going on in this open world, other than collecting chocobos, fighting fiends, getting crafting materials, and then hopefully encountering more and more fun little side quests out there.
Do you think the fiend thing is leading to like weapon boss fights, like optional boss fights like that? Or do you think that is all like, power-wise, I feel like that is a Game 3 thing.
That's the confusing
The way
bit.
they keep saying open world, it makes me think like, oh, you can do anything. Like all these optional things we put out there makes me think that's where they're going.
Yeah, I think they're going to have huge monsters for you to take down and stuff that'll be optional. I don't think you're going to be fighting a weapon in Rebirth. God, that'd be wild if they moved it that far ahead. But since you're all fans, Hammer, sorry, since you haven't played the original, but what did you all make of that weapon appearing in the trailer? What's going on with that? How are they introducing this so early? Because just to set the scene a little bit, Nomura, when talking about this, he said, the weapon didn't appear in the original, so I think you will need to deep dive, is how Nomura put it, which I said to Nomura, no problem there, buddy. But yeah, what do y'all make of them showing the weapon in such an early trailer for Rebirth?
I don't think it's that big of a deal if I think where they're going to go with the story at the end of this game, honestly.
So you say, I mean, people in the chat, they're saying it's just Bugenhagen explaining it. I think that's the most likely scenario, is that's Tifa floating through the little mini cosmos, and they're just explaining the layout of the world and the fact, if they're talking that much about the planet, they'll talk about, by the way, the planet has these things called weapons. We'll learn more about that later. And that was just kind of a way to twist the knife for fans, I guess, with the confusion.
I still have a gut feeling they're going to move one of them up. I don't know.
But you can't just move one. You have to have like the weapons emerging or not. You know what I mean? That's like such a huge moment. You can't be like, one snuck out. It's like, it's less fun.
Unless it is tied in with the greater dancing around it, story, timeline implications, like maybe.
So it's a weapon coming from Zach's timeline into ours or something. That'd be really cool.
Something wacky like that. Yeah, but it's tough to storyline wise have an excuse for why it's there. Yeah. I think you're right.
Storyline wise, no idea. If you actually want to fight one, VR all day.
Yep. Honestly, yeah. You saw it in Bugenhagen's demo. Now you can fight it in VR. Speaking of VR, the TGS demo also confirms that our dear boy Chadley is back. Everybody's favorite Chadley.
Yes.
And it's very funny in his introduction. You can see it in the B-roll. He's like, I bet you're wondering, how the hell did a freak like me come find you again or something? Like, he has some weird way of phrasing it. Like, he's like, I can read your mind cloud, and I know you're saying, what's this little freak doing here? So Square is very on the ball for localization, apparently. But now Chadley is out of the VR fighting game, and now he's going to be your point of contact for as you're reclaiming a bunch of Shinra towers around the world. So you're going around the world, finding Shinra towers, activating them, and then that's highlighting interesting areas in the world to explore. Like, hey, there's this thing over here, this thing over here. A little bit like, I don't know, I thought of like State of Decay. Yeah, a little Ubisoftification, I suppose.
Assassin's Creed.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but it seemed like it wasn't revealing like the fog of war on the map. It was just showing like this thing here, this thing here. So that seems like a fine way to interact with our dear boy Chadley once again, I suppose.
Did you ask them why they haven't showed Roche in any of this preview stuff yet?
I did.
I thought it was odd with his absence too. Honestly.
It is glaring. Yeah, I was
He's
the only
seen
person.
the original?
No, he's not. He's not. I was the only person during the preview who stood up and started chanting Roche, and nobody joined me. It was really alarming, I must say. Maybe the weird hooded guy is Roche, the guy who's in Junon. Maybe that's no.
There's a second hooded figure of his motorcycle.
Hang on. So there's a lot to unpack. So yeah, does anybody have any theories? Does anybody have any theories for who the hooded guy is? Some people are saying
wasn't that Sephiroth?
No, the guy with the goatee. No. People
no, in the first one there was a hooded guy who was what do you call it, like half dead or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of those guys.
But then he turned into Sephiroth, if I remember correctly.
Is that that probably did happen? They are connected to Sephiroth without revealing too much, but that's a weird thing too. Is in the demo we saw, like they show those. Did they call them just hooded guys? Let's just keep referring to them as that. They're on their way and they're like, oh, reunion, blah blah blah. They showed them like wandering the open world, so it's kind of like. Also, the weirdest thing is. In the open world demo, it starts with them coming out of the Mithril Mines, and then a giant bird swoops down and just grabs one of the hooded guys and flies away, which is odd. It's I guess. And so then the rest of the hooded guys are making their way to Junon, and so I wonder if that's just going to be kind of like almost the green line on the road in Forza Horizon. Just the equivalent of like, hey, these guys are always going to be marching towards your main path, because in theory they're also going towards where Sephiroth is, and if you want to find Sephiroth, just keep following these freaks. But it is very funny in the demo to like jump on the chocobo, and in this demo section that we saw, you have encountered chocobos before apparently, but in this section it's the first time jumping on, and just to like be surrounded by all of the hooded freaks going like, oh, Sephiroth, whoa. And meanwhile, just the chocobo music is blasting. It's just a bizarre juxtaposition of tone. But I think if you're a Seven fan, you have to love a bizarre juxtaposition of tone. It's just good times. But yeah, people are saying that real quick that hooded mysterious guy in Junon that he is Glenn from Ever Crisis, which is something I need to experience myself. Hopefully we'll have more content on Ever Crisis coming up real soon. So that's somebody I'm not quite familiar with, but that's apparently a goatee figure from the world here.
I was feverishly Googling Final Fantasy characters with goatee, and could it be Reeve? Is that possible?
Oh, that's interesting.
The outfit wouldn't make sense, but
yeah, that is an interesting idea. Does he have that clear? You know what? I don't know if I've heard anybody else volley that theory, but that maybe makes the most sense. People are saying the black hair versus brown hair of that guy, but they could have tweaked that, right?
Yeah, you might be right.
Because I'm trying to think of because he looks kind of older.
Yeah.
So Glenn, that's something I didn't think about, and that's something I would want to look into more. The other person I think is older that I know of would be Hollander, who was the other scientist who kind of like opposed Hojo and appeared in Crisis Core. He's not. I don't think he's a clone of Sephiroth. Just because if you look in the trailer, the clones of Sephiroth, their hoods have like kind of like white markings on it, and his doesn't.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm really intrigued to find out who that is. Like I have no idea who that is, and I definitely want to hear somebody like give more ideas about that.
They're teasing us. There was on that note of trying to identify strange people. There were some people saying, because I think everyone had the same take of like you saw that kind of doctor's office looking area, and it's like, is this Medial? That's really confusing that would be this early on in the story. Chat's screaming, by the way. It's not Reeve. It's not Reeve. We already saw Reeve in the remake. He has black hair confirmed. So I'll go with you.
Fair.
But
Very fair.
But anyways, that doctor figure in Mideel, somebody was saying, a lot of very smart people are saying that the subtitles in the trailer say that that his name is Dr. Sheeran, who apparently is from Trace of Two Paths, and that he's a surgeon who lives in Coral. Does anybody know about this?
If you turn on the subtitles, that's his name that appears when he starts talking. So
really,
I don't know much about him other than what I've kind of heard other people say or read online.
Yeah, apparently he's
I thought
from
he was
the
in
books.
Coral though, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so I guess he's a doctor, according to the books, who lives in Coral. So that would explain why that's happening there then, and it's not actually Mideel, but that is a confusing twist. Okay, yeah, chat's on top of that apparently. Let's see. They showed in the TGS demo, they showed Calm for the first time.
Looks beautiful.
Isn't that ridiculous? Yeah. It's like, it's a small, beautiful little town in the original game, but like, it's just so cool to see a city outside of Midgar, and it looks amazing. Like, it looks so huge. Can you imagine? Why would anybody still live in Midgar? You could walk 100 yards and go live in the most beautiful town you've ever seen in your life. It's unbelievable. So yeah, Calm's looking great. It's looking huge. I thought it was interesting that they're like, oh, you're not picking up quests by running around the town and talking to people. We'll just have a quest board in different locations. And then you can run up to there and pick up a quest that way, which I guess 16 kind of got close to that in some way with the quest board style stuff. I was just amazed how much they showed in that TGS demonstration. The airships going around the world, I think, is such a cool idea. They did say, and this is PR doing an intro before I demo, so it shouldn't be gospel, because they're also probably in the dark on a ton of this stuff coming from Japan. But they said that, in this game, you will have chocobos and vehicles. And they said plural vehicles. And we've seen the buggy. And so that implies we'd probably also have Tiny Bronco in this section.
I think that's been confirmed in an interview.
They said Tiny Bronco, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting a lot of Sid in this game. I can't wait to see Sid. He's probably my favorite character from the original game, I think.
Wow.
I think so. And so, yeah, I'm very curious to see what he looks like in this game, how he fights, all that stuff, which I guess we'll just kind of get a vague tease of. But yeah, overall, super impressed with everything here. I can't wait to dive in more. Stuff we've missed. Let's see. I'm trying to go through notes from stuff from when I played. Oh, one interesting thing is in the Clouds Pass section. And let's tread carefully for folks. But in the Clouds Pass section, it's going up and climbing the mountain. It's Sephiroth, Cloud, Tifa, and there's just one Shinra soldier now. I think in the original there were like two, like backup Shinra soldiers, but I thought that was interesting. And there's a fun little bit where a monster's attacking. It's like the boss at the end of the demo for Clouds Pass. And there's a fun section where Sephiroth's like, get her out of here. And then like the one Shinra soldier like grabs Tifa. He's like, hey, this way. And they run off together. It's a cute little moment. Let's see, other things. You can use a cushion as an item to sit on benches, apparently, in the open world, because Cloud's too fancy of a lad to sit his butt on just bare wood in the world, apparently.
He's a gentleman, of course.
That's right. Let's see, other things that you all are wondering about that we haven't covered yet?
You didn't want to talk spoilers. I was going to ask you, where do you think part 2 is going to conclude and maybe how? But never mind.
No, we can cryptically talk about it. I mean, they seem to be...
I know about the big thing.
Okay, well, we don't need to go more into it.
You don't need to be.
But yeah, it is such an interesting question, because they said, okay, it's going up to the Forgotten City. But also, I think it's so telling that they're playing up the reunion in such a big way. And Sephiroth is like, oh, the reunion where worlds will collide this time. That it feels like that could be all fused together. And to be fair, a lot of this, I'm a big fan of Maximilian Dude over there on YouTube. He's doing a great job with his recaps, and he's in the theory that he's under the impression that they're gonna kind of combine all that stuff. The reunions, also kind of the collision of worlds, probably also where the big event at the end of Disc 1 is going to happen. It's all going to be kind of intertwined, and I think that does make sense to kind of rearrange some things on the world map. I don't know why they'd be teasing that reunion angle so much at this point, if not for that. So I think it's going to be probably a dark cliffhanger is all I'm really confident about for where they're leaving this, because they also teased in the past that like, oh, this game's going to be kind of the dark middle chapter, like you see in a lot of Western trilogies, is how they put it, right? Where it's like, okay, this is going to be their Empire Strikes Back, is the way to read it. So I think it'll probably be a really odd and probably confusing situation again for where they're going to be bringing part 3, but at least we'll have some resolution on the Zach stuff.
Well, if it's like what Max has said, with a collapse, it would clean up Zach, honestly, and put everything into like one one party for the finishing thing.
And I think that'd be smart for sure. My question about the third game is, how are they handling the high wind? Because I was surprised, because the demo that we got, it was an open region, but you know, it wasn't huge. But then in the interviews, they're like, no, we're so glad you asked us about this. Like it is a one-to-one seamless recreation of the full world map in Final Fantasy VII. Like it is a seamless world, is the way they put it, which is odd because you're still kind of going out of that cave and going into other areas and stuff. So the area I saw, it seemed like, oh, it's easy to stitch a lot of the world together. Like that's not easy, but understandable how they do it. But then seeing that, again, that TGS demo was like, oh no, that area is huge, but I still don't think it's big enough to be flying around with the high wind for part 3. So I don't know how they're going to do that. And
going back to conceivably older locations, like, are they going to are they going to slap everything onto part 3? That seems like too out of scope, but I don't know.
Yeah.
The first game blew me away with how much was in there, and 2 seems to be doubling that. So I don't know.
Yep. And everybody on Twitch saying like, hey, you should bring Max in for Max spoilers or for deepest dive on Final Fantasy VII. Obviously, we'd love to cross over and do stuff with Max Dude at any point. I did reach out a while ago to have him as a guest on Trivia Tower, and I didn't hear back. So after that, I was like, all right, he doesn't need us. he's high and mighty, and so it's even tough to be able to contact him. But obviously, we'd love to have him on whatever. But he's in another pantheon from us, if we're being honest. So
I got one more question here, and then I got to bounce out. But if you had to put a $5 bet on it, is it Kate Sith or is it Kate Sith?
Is it Ketchi? I think it's probably going to be. I think it's probably going to be Ketchi. I bet.
Really?
I would think so. Does anybody remember? Did they say his name in Advent Children or Dirge of Cerberus?
Are you abandoning your thought about what Brianna White said about how she mentioned him as Kate Sith? So now that must be how they're saying it.
Yeah, but
I'm with B Wood. I think that's how they're going to say it.
Maybe.
Well, to be fair, that was Ben's.
True.
He mentioned that.
Yeah, that seemed interesting. Maybe it's like she was tapping into her own fandom, less because how many times, if you're doing the full VO for Rebirth, how many times could Aerith say Ketchi/Kate Sith? It's probably a shout out for like, coming your way, Ketchi, in some combat move or something, but it's not like there's big pivotal parts of the story. Well, I guess they're kind of, but it's not like huge moments of like her one-to-one heartfelt scene with Kate Sith. So I can see it being more just her knowing the character from her own fandom and leaning into that more than an experience. But what the hell do I know? So if I had to bet money, I would bet Ketchi. But they say they never say full game. They say Ket, apparently. Is that in Dirge of Cerberus? I should know. We streamed the entire damn thing. Let's see. Hey, other topics. I have a little bonus thing at the end, but anybody else has any hot questions?
So the big thing that happens, I know about the big thing. It's like the Darth Vader thing. You don't need to play it or see it to know the big thing.
Sure.
Do you know how far into the original that thing happens?
They describe it as halfway, which is interesting. That seems about right. I guess it's kind of the second half of the game.
It might happen in this one?
It should. It should happen in this one.
It's probably the climax, honestly, of this one.
Yeah.
They definitely hinted at that.
Yeah, they're definitely hinting as strongly as they possibly can towards that stuff. So in theory, we should have some resolution here, but the way they're teasing things, I think it's going to be an ending that is resolving some things. This is not a bold take. Resolving some things, but then also just opening the confusion and probably teasing further what they were teasing at the end of Remake about what Sephiroth is really up to here and all that fun stuff, let's see. There's stuff. Let's see. Chocobos that can smell and scour around the world to find more items if you're interested in that type of thing. Let's see. Chadley's back. No doubt about that. Oh, yeah. Under Junon, that area where Priscilla is and all that stuff. Like in the demo, we didn't get to see too much of that because basically you can look around the world a little bit, but we couldn't explore it too much. So running into the town, it's like you encounter the mayor of Under Junon, and she has a whole scene where she's like, looking up everybody's wanted levels and like, oh, you are worth quite a bit of money. Why shouldn't I turn you in? And then Priscilla comes running. It's like, you got to come down to the water. Something's happening. And then you can't really explore the rest of the town in that moment. So it looked like a cool little area, but you couldn't really go into any of the buildings and interact with stuff in a big way, at least. But
you asked about summons?
Summons, yeah, I did. They said that you get a special summon if you have the save data from Remake. And so I don't know what that would be. Maybe it's more than one, because the interesting thing that they pointed out is like, Japan just told us you unlock a special summon materia, or you unlock special summon materia as a gift. So it's unclear if that's one or multiple. So not entirely sure.
I believe they announced that, actually.
Did they say just one?
Yeah, there's a Kotaku article. There is scrolling feverishly. Should I say the summon?
Yeah, sure.
Want me to say the summon? You get Leviathan if you have Remake.
Yeah.
And you get Ramu if you have Intermission.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
Lost.
Yeah, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what they're going to do with items not carrying over and stuff. Like, are they just going to give you like a default, like just 10 potions, just 10 high potions, or like, Are they going to like Metroid you out of your items? I don't know.
It's probably just going to be, here's a random selection of items, not random, but kind of curated in that for materia as well. It is kind of funny.
Oh yeah, true, materia.
It is funny in Cloud's Past. Like you started in the demo, I think we were level like 21, but in Cloud's Past, Cloud is level 36 and Sephiroth is level 40, which is a fun little detail. Also in Cloud's Past, like I talked about it a little bit, hinted about it on the podcast, but it is just funny to see Cloud's like performance and delivery, where he's such a little dweeb in the Cloud's Past sequence, which makes more sense if you know the original game. But he's like, magic sure is weird, isn't it, Sephiroth? And Sephiroth like derails the conversation immediately, just to like bring everything back to Hojo, where he's like, you know who would have thoughts on magic being weird? Hojo, let me tell you about this frickin' guy. So they're definitely trying to squeeze in as much as they possibly can there. But yeah, it looks awesome. There's also that part of the TGS demo where there's that side quest where you have to track something down, and Red 13 is trying to use his nose and instead use the Chocobo's nose, and he's jealous because he thinks his tracking is better than a Chocobo's. Like, that's the level of stupidity and just silliness that I love from 7. So I love seeing that spirit's still there, even in the new content for Rebirth here. I do have just a tease of, because the music is so freaking good in this. And so I captured a little bit of the music from Rebirth, just a taste. This is some new music from Rebirth when you're running around the map here. Let's see if I can play it. Oh, here we go. And then, believe it or not, you get into combat, and it is just a more energetic version of that basic tune. But it is quite cool for a new piece of music from Final Fantasy VII that doesn't really have ties to anything else there.
That's real good.
Yeah,
sounds very piratey.
Yeah, well, that's that's true. Man, I was so mad when I saw other previews coming out, and I think Max's, where he just jumped in the water and swam around. I was like, I didn't even think of trying to swim in this game. That is such a cool idea. So maybe it's tying into a more aquatic area for this part of the map with the islands and treasures on the islands. And there was like a big rusty ship that was like lodged in the side of a mountain, which is really cool looking and stuff. A lot of fun stuff. If you have theories about this, please let us know. If you enjoy this content, thank you for being here. This is Party Chat, our bonus podcast each and every week. Appreciate you all supporting the show, supporting MinnMax on Patreon. You support us at the $5 tier to unlock Party Chat on your favorite podcast app every single Monday. And if you're at the $20 tier, even just for 1 month, you can call in and podcast with us directly. So B-Wood, Nick S., Nico, Hammer, Bob Buell, thank you for improving our content and for making this content possible.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
They're truly mind-boggling.
Truly mind-boggling. Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much for joining for Party Chat, everybody. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. This was a clip from Party Chat, our Patreon exclusive podcast that airs every single Monday. The podcast features cohorts and friends of the show, contributors, talking directly to the MinnMax community. So if you're looking for even more podcasts from MinnMax, this is the place to go. Just head to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, support us at the $5 tier, and you can listen to Party Chat every single week. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate it.